Good evening. Thank you for joining the Mono County COVID Community Meeting for May 21st, 2020. My name is Brian Wheeler from Mono County Public Health, and I'll be your host this evening. I am joined tonight by panelists from Mono County, the town of Mammoth Lakes, Mammoth Hospital. Before we get started with our agenda tonight, I just wanted to remind everyone of our COVID-19 portal, which is in English and in Spanish, and that can be found at monohealth.com/coronavirus. Again, monohealth.com/coronavirus. You can visit the site for the most up-to-date information. You can submit questions to be answered, and there's an FAQ page where perhaps many of your questions can be answered. And I also want to remind you that if you'd like to speak to a nurse because you have questions about COVID or you're not feeling well and you're looking for advice, I ask you to call the 211 hotline. Again, that is in English and Spanish as well, and select the option to speak to a live nurse. I will now ask, I'll turn the mic over to Stu Brown, who has a presentation for us. Stu, are you there?
Brian, good evening.
Evening.
Thank you for the introduction. So tonight we have a lot to cover. We've had a busy week, so we want to make sure we can get you all the news in a timely manner, and then leave plenty of time for the questions that the community throughout Mono County has for our amazing team of presenters this evening. Also with us this evening is Robin Roberts from Mono County Behavioral Health, and then we also have Joni Lynch from Mammoth Resorts to give us a little update on summer activities. So let me begin. Let's going to walk you through a couple of items here. We want to make sure that as a county, we are all in this together. So we want to make sure that everybody has got their face cover. It's required throughout Mono County in public. Want to make sure if you are sick, as Brian mentioned, that you do call the nurse hotline. That's 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then want to remind everybody that it can really only gather with people in your household unit, and you must maintain that 6 feet of distance from those not in your household unit. So again, want to make sure you're paying attention to those kind of three items on the screen this evening. We'll have a couple of slides on metrics this week. You can kind of see the metrics there on the bottom there. 98 people were tested, 96 negative, 2 positive. Again, all this information is available on the case stats portal. You can see that website right there, monohealth.com/coronavirus. Overall metrics, you can see we've tested over 500 people. That number is climbing, certainly now that we've started our pop-up testing. That's headed throughout Mono County. We started at the food bank on Wednesday, which is why you now see the pending number. So that was the number of people we tested on Wednesday. We have 34 positive, and then we have that 1 death on March 31st. Again, want to remind residents that we have a new path forward reopening Mono County page on the portal. There you can kind of see where we are on the progress of Mono County throughout the resilience roadmap. And it also includes new business reopening guidelines and the process for our local businesses to follow. So I want to make sure you get to that page. It has just been recently updated today. As you know, on May 8th, we transitioned into stage 2, which is kind of the lower risk workplaces with some adaptations. And these are the business segments, and activities included in stage 2. And you can see that's anywhere from retail stores, supply chains, childcare, office-based businesses, car wash, pet grooming, very important, landscape gardening, and the outdoor museums, galleries, and public spaces. On May 20th this week, which was just yesterday, we submitted an attestation form to the California Department of Public Health, and we were approved and permitted to move to expanded stage 2. So it was a big win for Mono County. So we can perform everything in stage 1 and early stage 2, which includes our retail stores, shopping malls, and swap meets, dine-in restaurants, but it doesn't include bars or gaming. They're a stage 3 activity, and then schools with modifications. Again, all this information can be found on the Path Forward Reopening Mono County page on our website. Again, we covered this last week, not permitted in stage 2, and it's really red on the top there. So this is the new, sorry, not new, this is the hotel lodging for leisure and tourism. This is the non-essential travel category. And that also includes campgrounds and RV parks. So again, these are all stage 3 activities and business segments, what they're calling kind of the higher risk workplaces.
Hey, Stu, this is Justin. I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't believe you're screen sharing.
Oh, okay. No one can see it? No? No. Okay. Well, that's disappointing. I will stop sharing here. Well, let me just keep going and I'll finish because I'm going to pass it off to Robin Roberts here. The town manager recently authorized temporary changes to the usual standards and requirements. Remains in effect until September 30. And then these interim guidelines can be viewed on townofmammothlakes.ca.gov. And again, those reopening guidelines are on the business page. And then finally, before we get to Robin, short-term lodging order on May 20th. Dr. Boo issued a new recreational travel and lodging order, replacing his April 1st amended order. This means for the unincorporated areas of Mona County, it rescinds the previous Mona County clarification of the state's order and simply says that Mona County remains subject to the governor's stay-at-home executive order. So again, until the county and potentially the state moves to stage 3, short-term lodging is prohibited in Mona County. And for the town of Mammoth Lakes, the same is in effect, but the town itself within the town of Mammoth Lakes has an order in effect that basically prohibits short-term lodging through June 30th unless Mona County enters stage 3 of the state of California roadmap. And this order will be reviewed every 30 days. So this time I'll have Robin Roberts jump in and talk about behavioral health, and I'll see if I can get this slide up for the public. Thank you. Robin?
Hey, thanks, Stu. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I apologize in advance because my dogs are now trained that anytime a Zoom experience happens where I'm talking, they become very active. So they may get a little noisy. So my name's Robin. I work for the Mono County Behavioral Health Department. And for a lot of people, you don't really know what that means. For those of you that would like to know, and for those of you that do know, we provide mental health services, substance use services for anybody in the county, anybody, all through the county. All of our services right now are being provided via the internet and or through the phone. We are taking new clients at any time. We don't charge you. We want to make sure that people have access to mental health services if you need them. On a larger scale, what we're here for, because we are part of your county, is county wellness. And so we are seeing a lot of stressed out people, including all the people that you see here on this panel, and all the people that are providing questions to us, and all the people who are listening. We all have a stress or 2 or 17 or 100 related to what's going on right now. And I have a couple things to say to you about that. Number one is that the most important protective factor, that's what we call it in my field. A protective factor is kind of like wearing a helmet or a seatbelt, that you protect yourself when you're about to go do something that's risky or when you're doing something that feels hard or difficult or challenging to you. A protective factor for the emotional part of your life is that you have connection. And so we are encouraging you in any ways that you can to make connections with people that you love or people that might be strangers to you. If you're worried about somebody, that you make a connection with them. If you're just needing connection because you're alone or you're isolated or you're overwhelmed by the fact that you're living with your family 24/7, whatever it is making connection with other people. The phone, email, writing letters, etc. We also are very aware, and what we're hearing about are the people that are concerned about opening up related to being exposed to the virus if people aren't participating in the protective factors that we have for the virus, which are wearing a mask and keeping a distance. I'm not here to talk to you about why you will or won't do that. What I'm here to say is we are a community. We are a strong community. We are a community that really relies on each other. And what's important right now is that we be kind to one another for whatever your differences might be, and that we continue to wear masks and keep distance and wash our hands, because that's the way we're going to be able to keep moving forward. I want you to call us if you're stressed. I want you to call us if you need connection. I want you to call us, please, if you're worried about somebody who's in a loved one or somebody in your life who you might think needs to get some help. We're here for you. We're here for all of you throughout the county. 760-924-1740. I think Sue's going to show you my slide in a second. But again, this is a stressful time. The more important thing here is that we just name that it's stressful, and that a lot of us are getting angry as a result of feeling stressed out. A lot of us are feeling stressed out and want the other person to do something that we need them to do in order for us to feel better. That's totally normal. And we are a community. We are a community. So please connect with people, connect with us if you need to or want to, and be kind.
Thank you, Robin. I don't know if anyone can see my screen. No? Yes?
We can
Yes.
see it.
Okay, we're back. Arguably the most important part of it. Recreation. We opened today, Vulcan Brothers Skate Park, very excited. Shady Rest Skate Park opened as well. Joni will talk a little bit more about Sierra Star Golf Course and its announcement. Snow Creek Driving Range opens Friday. You can see public restrooms, playgrounds, skate parks are still closed throughout Mona County. You can see Inyo National Forest and the Humboldt-Tiobe National Forest campgrounds, visitor centers, picnic areas, day use facilities remain closed at this time. And as we mentioned last week, Whitmore Pool, our playgrounds and picnic areas remain closed as they are at stage 3. So if you're out and about through all our town parks and facilities, you'll see these very distinctive visual signs. They're both at the skate park, Shady Rest Park, and we'll be down at Whitmore. So please follow those guidelines. So thank you. And then at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Joni and run through a quick update on summer activities at Mammoth Resorts. Thanks, Joni.
Hi, good evening, everyone. As Stuart mentioned, Sierra Star is opening for the season tomorrow at 8 a.m. This is actually an on-time, if not an early opening of the golf course due to the snow conditions. I posted the link there to where you can find the operating guidelines that we've set aside for Sierra Star. There are a few modifications to play, but golf has been approved in the state of California for some time, and we're really pleased to be opening that offering to the community. Secondly, we have been having crews working in Camp High Sierra. We are ready to open when and if the time is right. And once we have official word on camping and recreation in our community, Camp High Sierra is a property that Ski Area has been managing for the last couple of years. And so we've been doing some work there on that property. And then just in terms of summer events and activities, the current status is all the summer events that the Ski Area is involved with until mid to late August have essentially been canceled, all of the major events, like everything else through town. And as it relates to our summer activities, we are currently working through the planning stages. We're not 100% certain which businesses will open and when, but we're working through all those details now. Typically an opening for summer for most Mammoth summer activities would be mid to late June, around June 20th or so. So we'll keep an eye on how everything is progressing, and I'm here to answer any questions later in the presentation.
Thank you, Joni. So Brian, that is it for the presentation. I'll hand it back to you this evening. Thank you.
All right. Well, before we get started, I was going to ask if Wendy from Social Services could speak to us.
Yes, of course. Of course. Thank you for having me. So my name is Wendy Guzman-Rangel. I work for the Department of Social Services, and I'm an eligibility specialist. And so there are a couple of programs that I want to go ahead and just talk about. CalFresh, which is a food assistance program that provides benefits to help families supplement their diets for a month. There is what's called the Pandemic EBT, and this is a program that was approved for families with eligible children for free or reduced price meals that were going to school. Anyone that was on CalFresh, on CalWorks, on Medi-Cal, on foster care, etc., these students will be eligible to receive a maximum or up to $365 per eligible child in pandemic EBT. And that's going to be a card that gets mailed out to the people. The mailing started out May 8th and they will go through May 22nd. So if you don't receive or haven't received yours yet because your kid was or did receive free or reduced lunch, don't worry, don't panic. It takes about 7 to 10 days to receive that pandemic EBT card. So the pandemic EBT card application will open tomorrow on May 22nd, but it is, the way they tried to figure it out was that anyone that was already on free or reduced price lunches or anyone in any of these programs that I mentioned, they received them. Then we are going to go ahead and also talk about the emergency allotment. And that's another CalFresh program that for someone who did not get the maximum amount of CalFresh benefits in a given month, since this pandemic started in March, they will be eligible for a supplement to bring that household to the maximum amount of CalFresh benefits. This is on a monthly basis. And right now the state has approved the month of March, the month of April, May, and today we just found out it was approved for June as well. Medi-Cal is another program that we offer through our department, and Medi-Cal is a program that offers free or low cost health coverage for children and adults with low income or resources. CalWorks is another program, and it's a program that offers cash assistance for people who have children who need housing, food, clothing, or medical care. And Brian, do you want me to go ahead and touch a little bit upon childcare through IMACA?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay, so childcare is something that IMACA is, they're the ones that are administering the funds, but it's for anyone that is an essential worker right now. They can have a family, friend, or a neighbor, relative that can provide and be paid for childcare under this program. They must only be 18 years of age or older, and the funding goes through June 30th. This is a temporary program because some of the licensed providers are not able to, in the meantime, while the licensed providers are able to open their centers. So if you are interested, you can go ahead and contact Kelly Comboy, and she works for IMACA, and the phone number is 760-299-5344. That's Kelly, and she will go ahead and she will give you more information. Their applications are online, but again, they will help pay for childcare for anyone who's an essential worker. And lastly, I want to go ahead and mention the Disaster Relief Assistance, which is a program that provides a one-time assistance to immigrants in the amount of $500 per person, a maximum of $1,000 per household. In Mono County, the United Farm Workers Foundation is the organization that is assisting our residents in providing those funds. They are assisting 7 other counties, so it's hard to get in contact with them, but they only take applications over the phone. We spoke to someone from the United Farm Worker Foundation, and they recommended to keep calling. The phone number to call is 877-527-6660. Their hours are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. and on Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so those are probably the most important programs that we have available for people to apply, or that we partner up with other resources in town that can help our residents in Mono County or in Mammoth Lakes, but Mono County in particular. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Thank you, everyone. Before we get started with our busy question and answer session, I just want to give the opportunity for any of the panelists to make a brief statement before we begin. Would anyone like to make a statement tonight? All right, looks like no statements. Lauren, let's go to the Q&A. Can we have our first question?
Yes, Brian, I'm going to try to combine some of these. The first question is, what will it take to get into stage 3? Will there be an early attestation process like the expanded stage 2? Do you anticipate the bar for stage 3 to be really high? Is there stuff that we need to do in the county, or is it all up to the state?
So I'm going to ask Dr. Boo to answer that question. He's been on a lot of calls with the state, so he can perhaps give us some information there. Dr. Boo?
Okay. Yeah, hi, Brian. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I certainly have been on a lot of calls, but in those calls, they have not shared much information about when we might be able to move into stage 3 and what it's going to take to go there. If I had to guess, I would guess that they will have a similar approach where parts of the state that have lower disease burden, more stable epidemics, might be allowed to move ahead of other places. And you know, right now, if you look at the map, I mean, there really is a big sort of rural urban divide. Very few urban jurisdictions, as of this morning when I checked, had been able to move into complete stage 3, and it seemed like most of the rural counties in the state had been able to do so. But I honestly don't know. It would be reasonable to have similar metrics that we use, you know, to move into stage from 1 to 2, or from 1A to 2B, for the transition from 2 to 3, because they are, you know, reasonable indicators of epidemic stability. They've hinted to us that there might be some additional metrics, you know, related to the efficiency and efficacy of case contact tracing, like the number of cases who were able to contact and interview within 24 hours, and the number and percentage of the contacts of those cases, the people who were exposed, that were able to contact and deal with in the following 24 hours. So, but it'll probably be similar. Sorry, I spoke way too much.
That's okay, Dr. Boo. I believe Chief Revolt would like to add to that. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, just a quick add, and that's a lot of information, Dr. Boo. Well done. One thing I would remind us is, as we do move into consideration for stage 3, as Dr. Boo said, there'd be a lot of metrics looked at. You know, how we continue to do what we've been doing throughout Mono County as individuals, and then how we model that behavior and execute it in our business reopening will have a lot to do with making it easier to enter stage 3. That's a certainty that if we maintain a low level of infection rate, and what we do get, we manage well, that part of our fate is a little bit more in our hands, I think, this time around. So keep up the good work, and that's the fastest way forward.
Chief Freevault, thanks for saying that. That's very important.
I want to thank you both. How about our next question, Lauren?
Why aren't short-term rentals being allowed for another 6 weeks? Is there anything business owners or short-term rental operators can do to help petition the governor for early or some sort of variation?
Dan, would you be willing to speak to the short-term rental?
Yes, thank you, Brian. Dan Haller with the town of Mammoth Lakes. We have 2 things going on short-term rentals. One is the order that overlays the town of Mammoth Lakes, and it's very specific, more specific than the counties, which is just tied to the governor's order. But in terms of being able to move faster into that, it is the whole idea of using hotels and vacation rentals is a stage 3 type activity. And again, as the previous question was addressed, we don't know when that transition will be made. The governor has laid out very specific standards and conditions that they want to review and have met before they transition in. As mentioned, there are probably some smaller things that can happen in between. We are doing some requests to the governor's office regarding these through Cal OES and asking some very specific questions related to this type of activity. Also, I think if people really want to argue for it or lobby for it, really it's to the governor's office, and I think the argument really ties to the metrics that he laid out. If you're going to make an argument, we need to let them know that we have plans in place to take care of our sick. We have plans in place to protect vulnerable populations here in our county, that we are not seeing increasing cases, that we are protected from that perspective, and that we are stable in those areas. Therefore, we need to continue to move through the economic chain to maintain now our economic, our social, our mental health, just from a financial viability question. So I think if you look for that information, you can find the governor's outline, hit on those points, provide that information. Then it's, as was mentioned earlier, it will likely be a transitional period of different things being pulled either from stage 3 into a stage 2B or whatever we want to call it, and or a very soft opening into stage 3 and moving through it accordingly. But it will probably not be very quick from that perspective. We put the longer term date on the towns to June 30th. So a number of operators, they know what their calendars needs to look like as they look to rent properties versus being in a state of unknown for the next several weeks of not knowing what's going to happen. If we do get into stage 3 and the rental programs are allowed, then we would roll back, obviously, the local orders and allow those to happen.
Thank you, Dan. Lauren, can we have our next question?
How long are the pop-up testing site test results taking to come back? Is everyone being informed of positive and negative results, and can you speak to the error rate on these tests?
So I can definitely speak to that as I'm part of that. So the pop-up tests we are actually sending out to San Joaquin Public Health Lab. And once they receive it, the turnaround time is basically typically 24 to 48, sometimes 72 hours. We are overnighting those lab samples, so they do get over there quickly, and we've been getting results relatively quickly. And yes, people will be informed of their result, whether it's negative or positive. Lauren, we can take our next question.
Campgrounds are saying they're open and people are taking reservations for June 1st, but now that's pushed out to June 30th. Is fishing season going to open June 1st without hotels and short-term rentals and campgrounds?
I would wonder if our CAO, Bob Lawton, could speak to the fishing question.
Yes, thanks very much, Brian. As you know, the Board of Supervisors voted today to request to the Department of Fish and Wildlife that the fishing season be opened in Mono County effective tomorrow, Friday, May 22nd. Understanding that the wheels of the bureaucracy may take a little time to turn, I can't guarantee that we will be open tomorrow, but we do expect prompt action that hopefully before the Memorial Day weekend gets too far along. With respect to camping and RVs, Mono County has joined with Tuolumne County, Mariposa County, Madera County, Yosemite National Park, and the Stanislaus and Sierra National Forests in requesting authorization from the governor to develop protocols which would allow us to open at least campgrounds and RV parks under social distancing rules and other safety precautions. Folks are coming up here anyway. There are public health issues with people having tanks to empty, campfires being built, the whole array of issues that come along with a concentration of people who are essentially camping probably in places that aren't adequately supported. So we are making every effort to get authorization. At the same time, we are seeking the fishing season to be started to allow people to camp, use their RVs in a manner that's safe both for the occupants and the campers, as well as the rest of the folks who are here in Mono County.
Thank you, CAO Lawton. Can we have our next question, please?
Sorry, just one second.
That's okay.
Can you speak to the error rate on the tests that are being performed at the pop-up testing clinic?
I'm sorry, were you asking what the error rate is?
Yes, we have questions on the error rate.
Yeah, Brian, I can take it.
Sure.
Yeah, hey, Tom Boo, Dr. Boo again. You know, the most honest answer is we don't really know. We do know that they're not perfect. You know, and basically, you know, the pop-up testing sites, you know, yesterday was really the first one, and there were no people who were sick. You know, everybody was well and asymptomatic and just being screened. And we have really no information about, you know, how accurate, inaccurate the tests are in that population. A negative test does not guarantee that you have infection, but even more important and more commonly, you know, if I'm feeling well, have no symptoms, but I've been infected and I'm incubating the virus. Remember, there's an incubation period from between 2 and 14 days, with most commonly about 5 days from the time that somebody who does become sick, from the time they get the infection in their body through their nose, mouth, or face, and you know, when they, you know, develop a fever, a headache, or a cough, or whatever symptoms they're going to have. And if I'm incubating, I could be tested now, be negative today, an accurate test result, but tomorrow the virus begins to you know, appear in my nose and mouth. So it really doesn't mean very much about your safety or risk to the public if you're tested and you have a negative result. It means you probably, you know, there's probably about a 90% chance. I'm not sure, you know, that you don't have the virus right now, but there's at least a, you know, at least a 10%, maybe substantially higher chance that the test was inaccurate, and then the even, you know, more significant possibility that you have it, but the test just won't show it yet. It's not present in your nose, but in the next few days it will be.
Thank you, Dr. Boo. Lauren, can we have our next question?
Yes, the next question is for Joni. Hearing rumors that the ski area is opening for ski camps, can that be verified? Also, can you talk about the bike park?
Yeah, sure. I saw those two questions, Lauren. Thank you. First on ski camps, we have no plans, definitive plans to open the ski area for ski camps at this time. Of course, we have received countless requests from professional organizations all the way down to every local camp and club from around the nation who is looking for a place for their athletes to train. At this time, like I said, we do not have any plans to open for camps. There was another question that was asking about snowcats, and was there a chance that we would open to the public for skiing? And you know, again, we currently have no plans. Are we interested in opening? Of course we are. We would love to, but we continue to follow the guidelines, work closely with our partners in the community and with the local and state officials on what is the right thing to do. So that hopefully covers the question on skiing. On bike park, I may have been unclear. I want to clarify the mountain bike park would typically open around mid to late June. As of right now, we do not have a confirmed plan or timeline for opening the bike park. So we're working through some of those details right now, but no confirmed date.
Thank you so much. Lauren, can we have our next question?
Can you speak to Bridgeport 4th of July plans? Are they still moving forward with everything?
I'm sorry, Lauren, you broke up a little bit. Can you repeat the question?
Apologies. Can you speak to Bridgeport 4th of July plans? Are they still moving forward with all of their planned events?
Chief Freebold or Bob, would you like to speak to that?
I'll probably let Bob answer that one.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Frank. Thanks, Brian.
Sure.
There's another country heard from. Hey, Tom. My understanding is we have not acted on any requests to close down the Bridgeport 4th of July celebrations, and that organizers are looking at ways to have as safe an event as possible. It's a mixture, a combination of different events, and I'm not aware that anything has been terminated at this point or been told that it can't happen. Frank, you have some more details on that? Have you heard anything differently?
Hey, this is Dr. Boo. I don't think the EOC's been consulted. I certainly haven't heard anything. I don't think Bridgeport Chamber, anybody, the organizers have reached out for any advice or guidance.
Brian, I can answer a little bit of that if I may.
Absolutely, Sheriff Braun.
The answer is we don't have an answer. They're still pending deciding on that. They're waiting to see how things go and what opens up and what possibilities there are. So Bridgeport is still moving forward with plans and trying to figure out how they can make it work, knowing that maybe they can't make it work. But the answer is we don't know yet, but they are hoping to still have something.
Thank you, Sheriff Braun. Lauren, do we have any call-in questions?
We do. Our first call-in caller is Craig. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Craig.
Yeah, hi there. Can you hear me?
Hi, Craig. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. So I'd like to start off by commending all the work that you're doing in a really difficult time. I do have, though, what may be a little bit of an uncomfortable question, which is, first of all, I'd like to say thanks to Ingrid Braun. She is the only elected representative who is attending these meetings. We have no elected representative from either the town or the county that are present. And I'd like to know why.
Brian, I can answer that.
Sure, go ahead.
I think the reason is because of Brown Act requirements. If we have county supervisors on this meeting and watching the meeting, it confuses things. I honestly, beyond that, I can't explain why they wouldn't be here, but I think the Brown Act restricts elected officials who normally participate in a supervisor or county council role. Dan Holler might be able to elaborate, or Bob could elaborate on that. I am here from a law enforcement perspective because I think it's important for me to be able to answer questions that come across from a law enforcement.
Thank you, Sheriff. And the other point I would add is that the town council and the county board of supervisors are the policy-making bodies. The folks who are on these calls on a regular basis are the people who are responsible for carrying out the policies, working with this issue on a day-to-day basis. And the things that we learn on these calls certainly come back to the board of supervisors in the form of recommendations and requests for action. And there's no doubt at all that each member of the board and each member of council is vitally interested in what is said here and what the questions are and what the concerns are. But the folks who are here are the folks who are responsible for putting things into motion on your behalf.
And also just a reminder that John Peters, who's a supervisor, has hosted several meetings in the North County. Just wanted to throw that in there. Lauren, can we have our next call?
Our next caller is Chris Liza. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, good. So it's great to see a bunch of friends here. And thanks for all you're doing to support our efforts in the county. None of you bargained for this deal, but it's fallen in your laps, and I think you're doing a great job. I just want to talk a little bit about and ask questions about some procedures from a retailer's perspective. And, you know, we're always talking about masks, but the signage that we've been given, and I guess the regulations talks about face coverings. And when you're on the front line, that's very different because a face covering is a guy walking into your store with his t-shirt over his nose. And a mask is something that's going to stay over his face. So I'm very concerned about this weekend. I think it's going to be really busy, and I think we're going to have enforcement issues, and I don't want to put that on my employees. So I plan on being at my retail business all weekend, trying to limit the number of people coming into my establishment, number one, and number two, making sure everyone has a proper mask versus a face covering. So maybe Tom and Robin can help me how to deal with these issues. Is a t-shirt over your nose sufficient? Because the argument people make coming from Nevada is that it is, but I don't think it is. And so how do we enforce this? How do we deal with it while still being kind to people, as Robin suggests?
So would Dr. Burrows or Dr. Vu like to address the first part of the question about the effectiveness of face covers?
Let me ask Dr. Burrows. That's a tough one.
Thanks for passing that on. So I'm gonna answer it first by saying what we know about face coverings or covering your nose and your mouth. And this initially started as what seemingly was a good idea, and it was the best defense we had. The reality is, as we've gone along, and even as we've looked back in our history now to other epidemics like the swine flu epidemic in 1918 and other related type of syndromes, societies and communities that do the best job of isolating and using face coverings, and I'm going to specify you're covering your nose and your mouth with something dedicated to doing that specific role, did the best in coming out of these pandemics without it rolling on or having recurrent surges. Clearly, there are differentiations in how well protected you can be with a mask. So there's everything from what we refer to as an N95 mask, which is the medically approved or type of mask we use that creates a seal that not only protects the people that you're around from what you have, but it also protects you from what they have. We're not asking people to do that. The next level is a mask that or a face covering that covers is dedicated to the idea of covering your nose and your mouth. And the idea there is, one, you now have a barrier that's preventing you from touching your own nose and your mouth, which is what we know more and more about how this type of disease is spread. And if you wear a mask and the other people are wearing masks, you're protecting yourself from what they have, I'm saying that incorrectly. You're protecting them from whatever you have, and they're protecting you from whatever you have. A t-shirt over your nose and mouth is really pushing the limits of what I think anyone would consider to be acceptable. And that's really a cop-out to the idea that we are working collaboratively as a community to do the best we can to protect ourselves and allow things to move forward. Frankly, the idea that you're just going to cover your mouth with something that's as contaminated as the rest of you is really a hard, for me, a hard pill to swallow to say that's going to be effective. The other thing that we have encouraged all the way along is once you put a mask on, you don't want to touch it in the area where it's coming in contact with your nose and your mouth. So when you're putting a mask on and off, when you have it, you don't want to grab it here and pull it down. You want to grab it from the sides here, take it off, and then put it somewhere where it's not going to cross-contaminate other surfaces where you might touch it or someone else might touch it, and then you touch your face, and now you become infected. You may as well not wear anything at that point. And likewise, the t-shirt argument is, to me, the same thing. So I get the point about not trying to bully people or create an argument or create some sort of public shaming that you're going to somehow be successful, because you won't be. But the reality is that not complying with this order, and that's what it is an order, is a violation. And I'm sure that Sheriff Braun would agree that if you have someone that's making a stink about something like that, that's something that's worth calling. I mean, if you can't educate, if you can't get them to cooperate in a polite and compliant manner, that now becomes an issue where you have to say, look, I've got someone that's creating an issue for me, I need help.
Sheriff Braun?
to that end, as Dr. Burrows said, if you have someone who is not complying, who wants to come into your business and won't wear a mask, it's the same as no shirt, no shoes, no service. No mask, no service. It's your business. You have the right to tell them, no, I'm sorry, you cannot come in here without a mask. And if they create a stink, then call us and we will come out there. And we're going to go for the education piece, hand them a mask, try to encourage them to behave. But if they want to talk their way into a ticket, they're going to talk their way into a ticket. And we're not going to cite them for the health and safety code violation. We're going to cite them for whatever they're doing, trespassing after you told them that they had to leave, or we tell them they had to leave. 415, which is disturbing the peace, or battery if they lay hands on somebody. We're going to get them with the actual criminal violation that's going to carry more teeth and that's going to be prosecutable by the district attorney's office. So there is a solution to it. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but we've seen those videos on TV where people decide to be a jerk and they get a ticket for it. They get cited for it. They can talk their way into a ticket. And we're really trying. We haven't had to cite anybody yet. We're really going with education and voluntary compliance. But if it comes down to a citation or an arrest, that's what it comes down to. So please feel free to call us. That's what we're there for. We're there to enforce the law.
I mean, to me, it ultimately seems like a pretty small sacrifice to allow us all to thrive, succeed, and move forward.
Thank you, Dr. Burrows. Thank you, Sheriff Braun. It is now approximately 6:15. We have about 15 minutes left. Let's take one more of the live calls and then we'll go back to the written.
Okay, next caller is Greg Bock. Go ahead, Greg.
All right, I know Tom's cringing. One follow-up to the last call is that I think many businesses carry the disposable masks and can offer them to patrons very convincingly when they come in. I'm not suggesting there's an argument, but I think that would be very helpful. And I think most people that try to walk in with a t-shirt over their face or nothing at all would gladly take a mask. My question is to distinguished doctors, and that is, when do you expect Mono County to have a reliable antibody test?
So that's a little bit of a complicated answer. I'm going to do my best to try and simplify it as best I can. The antibody test that currently exists is actually pretty accurate. The problem is the other level of what you look at when you're looking at a test and trying to relate it to a community as far as how effective it is. So if you have a very low prevalence, which means the number of people in a given community like Mono County have this condition, whatever it is, be it coronavirus or whatever you're testing for, if it's a very small number, then your what we call positive predictive value of that test becomes smaller and smaller. What that means is you create a whole population of people that you tell are positive for antibodies in this example, and in fact they're not. So you have this big number of what we call false positives. So in the situation that we're looking at right now with what we estimate to be our prevalence, which is probably not more than 1 or 2%, even with a 98% reliable test, you're probably looking at less than half of the people that you're telling are positive are actually positive. So it's not that the test doesn't work or that it's reliable, it's that you have to apply it in the right population of people that have it. As we have more and more people that have this, that have been exposed and have developed antibodies, that test will be more and more reliable to determine how many people have in fact been infected and now have antibodies.
Dr. Burrows, just to be clear, having antibodies doesn't necessarily mean you have long-term immunity, correct?
At this point, it does not necessarily mean that. Some evidence that has come out actually very recently, I just looked at this today, is now suggesting that people that have been exposed that have tested positive are no longer considered to be infected. That's evidence coming out of South Korea right now, where they're looking at that and demonstrating that people, even if they test positive weeks after they've been symptomatic, are not spreading this to other people. And at least in that country, they're talking about utilizing that finding to help open their community community and allow people to be out in the public and not be worried about spreading. I want to emphasize that's preliminary findings, not confirmed, and certainly what they find in South Korea, you can't necessarily apply to the United States. More research has to be done, but that seems to be what we're finding as we move forward, and that goes along with what we believe to be true.
Thank you, Dr. Burrows. Let's go to our next written question, Lauren.
Please explain how we can request authorization to open campgrounds, but at the same time, we say we cannot pursue allowing short-term rentals because they violate a state-level prohibition on non-essential travel. Why are we banning short-term rentals here when other counties around the state can rent?
Chief Freebold or Dan, would you like to address that question?
Take a first stab at it, and then I think Dan can probably finish it off. So not quite as complicated as the antibody testing, but this does have its own wrinkles. First of all, in campgrounds, we tend to make the separation between privately owned and then state or federally owned. On the private side, the governor's orders have consistently put those private sites into the short-term rental category if they're less than 30 days. On the and so there would be a stage 3 activity as it currently exists, as you've heard from others. We're petitioning the governor's office to make a consideration for a place like Mono County because of all the things we've mentioned. We try and take some pressure off the dispersed camping. On the federal side, a federal agency can act above the state order if they choose to. What you're seeing, if you look at some of the reservation sites online, is a few, and it's relatively a few, local forests in the state having been delegated regional authority to do so. Some of the local forests are opening up some of the campgrounds or some areas. Mostly, though, they're generally trying to follow the governor's orders. And then in some cases, they also don't have the workforce or the logistics to meet the timelines that we'd like to have them open. One of the reasons we're trying to explain it's so different back here is that I lived on the other side of the Sierras for a long time. You could make a day trip and go fishing pretty easily. If you don't live around here, it's a pretty big commitment to come up and go day fishing and then drive back to wherever you came from. And so the spontaneous camping is certainly, we see it happening. So that's kind of the differentiation between, it's a category of short-term rentals and the fact that it also includes recreation and tourism travel. I'm not saying it's a great and clear distinction, but it is the one that we're trying to work with, and your elected officials are advocating for you through their communications to the state to make an allowance for the need for some camping relief here, at least on the private sector side. And then we're going to respect our federal partners' understanding on when, where, and how they're able to open up given their conditions. We certainly like the ability to make decisions. Your administrators make the decisions for Mono County and for Town of Mammoth Lakes. They do that responsibly. And I believe our federal partners are trying to balance and thread the needle the same way we are.
And Frank, just to remind folks on that our Board of Supervisors today joined with other counties with federal partners in seeking the ability from the state to properly open campgrounds. And that's just the latest in a string of actions that the board is taking. They're meeting sometimes, they're definitely meeting twice a week. They had meetings today. They'll be back on Monday. They've been, Supervisor Peters has made 3 community meetings. And I know that members of the board want to be on these calls, but they're not invited because of those Brown Act issues. And so it's not only Mono County that's up short on the ability to have people camp within the rules, but other counties as well. And as you noted, the federal campgrounds, if they open, they could open without safeguards in place if they so chose.
Thank you, CAO Lawton. Thank you, Frank. Can we go to our next question?
Would it be permissible to use the bike park trails like Big Ring when the snow has melted, although the mountain is officially closed?
So currently the way that our permit works, when the ski area is closed, the bike park trails are closed. There are people out riding the trails. It's a little bit of a gray area right now, and we're in this in-between time.
Thank you so much. We have 5 minutes left. Let's see if we can get to a couple more questions.
What is the plan for the influx of visitors with fishing season? Where are they allowed to camp right now? And who is collecting trash, fires, stopping the spread of disease, etc.?
Chief Freebold, do you want to take a stab at that one?
So, and it was just a little broken up on my end. I understood the question to be with the campgrounds closed, but people camping dispersed, who is cleaning up trash, essentially?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was the gist of the question, and protecting health.
So one of the things that we require on people throughout society is they have to have some level of self-responsibility. So presently, no, we don't have any workforce available that's going out into the forest and cleaning up trash from irresponsible dispersed campers. And honestly, I don't know that we could do that. I suppose we could all pick up a trash bag and head out this weekend and do our best. But I'm not sure we could keep up with all of it. That is one of the challenges on the campground side. That's why we're working with our state, federal, and private partners on how we can get relief to that. But no, there's no present workforce out going and doing that I'm aware of.
Thank you, Chief. That's a tough question. Looks like we have time for one more quick question, Lauren.
Okay, my apologies if this was answered already. Why can the rest of the state rent and we cannot? Seems to be more of a county issue, not a state issue.
Brian, if I may.
Absolutely.
One of the effects of Dr. Boo's revised health order, which in the town of Mammoth Lakes extended the short-term rental ban through June 30th at the town's request, is that the county order was rescinded, was lifted for unincorporated areas of the county. Now, what that means isn't that it's open season, so to speak. What it does mean is we are exactly in line with the restrictions and requirements laid down by the state. And the state has a variety of different requirements: the ban on non-essential travel, the designation as non-essential employees, those who are engaged in the hospitality industry who aren't supporting lodging for essential workers or people who are quarantined. So the bottom line is, for Mono County, we are no more restrictive in any area relating to COVID activity, COVID limited activity, than the state will allow us to be. We are out there as far as we can be under the state requirements. And I think that's an important thing to remember. As soon as state requirements are eased, we move forward without having to wait or take separate action. So as was said earlier, don't be afraid to contact the governor's office. That's what our Board of Supervisors is doing. That's what individual members are doing of our community. That's what our business roundtable folks are doing. Please make sure you keep it in front of the governor's office, public health, and all the departments, OES, that we are ready to have the the restrictions reviewed, to have our situation taken into account, and to be treated as the responsible citizens we all are.
Thank you, CAO Lawton. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this evening. So if you still have questions, I encourage you to check out our Q&A section, or the frequently asked questions section on the COVID portal. I want to thank all the panelists who've been on here tonight and viewers at home. And until next week, take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you.